So I'm currently in Paris, where I'm attending tomorrow a Students for Liberty conference on bioethics. I'll be putting a link down below for those of you who live in Paris and are French speakers. Feel free to join. I want to talk to you today about the rail passenger rights reform. This week, the Committee of Transport and Tourism approved the reform. 39 votes in favor, 2 against, and 6 abstentions. The upload to check out how your individual MEP voted always takes a bit of time, but if somebody wants to know that, you can contact me and I'll tell you as soon as possible. The rail passenger rights reform basically changes the way you get compensation if your train is delayed or cancelled or otherwise. So the proposal that the committee passed sets the level of compensation to 50% of the ticket price from the current 25%. In case of delays up to more than 1 hour, so that's in case of delays up to 1 hour, and to 75% from the current 50% in case of delays of more than 2 hours. And they would also scrap the force majeure clause, which means that the train companies could not give you an excuse such as there was bad weather, therefore you cannot have cancellation whatsoever, which is also what they did for the airline compensation fees. So this is an interesting story because this happened to me recently. I was traveling back from Riga to Brussels, and I had the situation that my flight was cancelled, and I'm applying for compensation through the regulation EU 261, which gives you a certain amount of compensation depending on how far you traveled. And that, of course, takes a long time. It's very bureaucratic, and it is imposed on everyone. On a general basis, you could say, well, this is actually a good regulation because it requires the companies to compensate you if they didn't provide what they said they were going to provide. But then again, on the other side, you'll have to consider that this is basically a government-mandated insurance policy. So let's say you had no regulation whatsoever, and if your flight is cancelled, or your train is cancelled, or your train is very much delayed, you'd be stuck. And the question is, of course, what insurance policy would every single rail provider apply, and would you choose based on their rights? So, for instance, very often you book a plane ticket, and then they give you the option of booking an insurance that would cover everything in every situation. Now, you can choose for whatever. If they charge you 10 euros, 15 euros, 20 euros, you could choose and you say, oh, this is actually useful for me. I've been in a situation before. I know how it is and I want to avoid that risk. So what I'm going to do is I book this insurance. Or maybe the company is generally known for having a good compensation policy itself. Now, you could also fly low cost and they tell you, okay, this is the deal. You get a very cheap ticket. But if something goes wrong, that's your problem. And now you could be the type of consumer who says, I'm okay with that. I don't mind. I'll take the risk for the low price. But if you generalize it and you have a general compensation policy, you basically mandate that everybody has to have an insurance. Basically, the government tells the companies you have to insure all of your customers. Now, generally, you could say, well, that's a good thing. But the question is, of course, what are the costs of that? If all airlines are continuously required to compensate all of the damages, then the cost will be put on the consumer and your ticket prices increase generally. Those people who always wanted that type of insurance, for those people, nothing will change. But for those consumers who say, oh, I actually want a cheap ticket, and I don't care about the insurance. If something goes wrong, that's my problem. They are actually hurt by this type of regulation. So there's actually less consumer choice in the whole deal, which is why I think it's actually a bad regulation. But I'll be putting all the information down below about the rail passenger rights, so you can follow up on the procedure and how it's gonna go. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.